Hi everyone, welcome to the Quipster Film Review Podcast. My name is Vince Leo. I'm the author of the film review website, Quipster.net. I invite you to check out the site and choose from among 3,800 written film reviews. I've been doing film reviews since the mid-90s, and you can read them all at Quipster.net, Quipster.net. Keanu is today's film I'm going to be reviewing. It's a comedy, primarily. It does contain action elements as well. It's an R-rated film because of its violence, its language throughout, drug use, sexuality, and nudity. The runtime is an hour and 38 minutes, and the main stars are Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele, with supporting roles for Method Man, Tiffany Haddish, Will Forte, Nia Long. The director is Peter Atencio, and the screenplay is by Jordan Peele and Alex Rubens. Sketch comedy stars Key and Peele aim to take their humor to the big screen with this film, Keanu. It's an action comedy that sees the racial stereotype-breaking comedians have to embrace those stereotypes in order to infiltrate a crew of vicious gangsters to get their beloved kitten back. Yes, their kitten. Key stars as Clarence, and Clarence is a straight-laced suburbanite husband and father. He's lured by his recently broken-up slacker cousin named Rell, played by Peele, to finally cut loose with his wife away for the weekend. Little do they know that this cutting a little loose might involve strippers and drugs and murder, as Rell's adorable kitty, whom he found on his doorstep and ended up giving him his long-lost mojo back. The kitten's been taken in a burglary that involved a mistaken identity by a man named Cheddar, who is the leader of a gang called the Blips, which is a portmanteau denoting that the members of the Blips are people who didn't quite cut it in the Bloods or Crips. Cheddar's only going to give the young kitten named Keanu back if the men, who are now posing as gangster thugs called Tectonic and Shark Tank, because they end up getting mistaken for these out-of-towner hitmen called the Allentown gang, who are mute and trench-coated thugs, also played by Key and Peele throughout the movie. And they find themselves on the run from them, too, because the Allentown gang are also on the lookout for the lovable kitten that got away from them during a gunfight at the film's introduction. Now, much of the humor in Keanu stems from these two nerdy men as the main protagonists who are clearly in over their heads trying to act street. Clarence ends up mentoring a squad of new recruits in the ways of how to be a top-flight gangster, while Rell gets closer to the female gang member High C, played by Tiffany Haddish, during a mission to gain Cheddar's respect by collecting some drug money from a comedic actress Anna Faris in a scene-stealing scene where she goes completely off the chain. The men pose and cop attitudes as they've seen from the movies that they enjoy, to the point where this film, which pays a lot of homage to New Jack City, could have and probably should have been called New Jack Kitty. They even end up using the N-word reluctantly. They're clearly uncomfortable doing it, but they feel they have to in order to pose as proper thugs. Now, it won't surprise their fans to learn that Key and Peele do have great chemistry together, and many of the best moments of the film come with their effortless camaraderie and the rhythmic banter that they explore as they try to keep each other safe while traversing the dangerous criminal underworld. There are also fine comedic supporting turns from Method Man and Haddish, both of whom also give some added nuance to what would have been just one-note characterizations. As with most of Key and Peele's comedic premises, it's generally funny, but they do find themselves having to repeat jokes too often, and that stretches out the handful of go-to gags beyond their freshness date in order to fill up a full-length feature film. There are gags involving Clarence's love of George Michael, the singer, and that's one of the go-to jokes, of which the main premise seems to be that it's corny for a black man to enjoy the white pop sensibilities and the music of George Michael. I do have to take a little bit of issue here because it should be noted, and I'm not a George Michael fan, but I did used to be a DJ and I followed the pop charts quite well. And I have to note that George Michael's Faith album, from the late 80s, it spent 61 weeks on the top black albums chart, not just the pop albums chart, the black albums chart, which is currently called the R&B and hip hop chart. It keeps changing names. Sometimes it's called the urban chart, etc. And it stayed at number one for weeks and weeks. So the film has a lot of fun with a black man liking George Michael, but I have to tell you, when that album came out, it was a major hit on the Black Albums chart too. So the comedy duo, as they did with some of their recurring skits from their origins on Mad TV to their TV show on Comedy Central, Key and Peele, they continue their premise and try to push the envelope even further into the realm of the absurd. That might work in short chunks, but as a full-length film, it does give the impression, once things get completely out of hand, that they've run out of creative fuel and are now just trying to coast to the finish line with residual fumes of what worked before. Keanu, the film, is directed by Peter Atencio. Atencio directed Key and Peele for the vast majority of the run of their show on Comedy Central. The film is written by Peele as well as his co-collaborator Alex Rubens, who was a writer and a co-producer on Key and Peele on television. Interestingly, Key does not get a writing credit, even though a lot of their comedic styles is improvised, but director Atencio is clearly in tune with Key and Peele and their style. So the fans of Key and Peele's brand will likely feel right at home in this extended sketch comedy premise. However, unlike the TV show, the men involved can't really switch to a new topic once they run out of finding humor in the current one, because this is all based on one particular plot, and that keeps Keanu just short of the kind of runaway comedy hit that Key and Peele are flirting with throughout the first half of the movie. The second half of the film is a repeat of a lot of the jokes that you enjoyed better the first time around in the first half. It throws in a lot more murderous thug violence. A lot of that's more disturbing than it is funny, so the laughs just aren't there throughout most of the second half. The action's not really poorly delivered, but it is much less amusing to see these men diving headfirst into murderous thug life than in the funny aspect of seeing them actively trying to avoid it. Now, while Keanu does deliver on just enough funny moments to garner a recommendation, it does play well with the racial stereotypes. It really rides that quite well. Key and Peele are the masters of it, but given that they have about 80 more minutes to explore a sketch comedy premise than they would have had on television, I do think that their film could have delved deeper into confronting these racial issues more head on instead of just remaining superficially interested in them just for a few quick gags. So they really need to take advantage of the fact that they have more time to really dig deeper and explore more satire. So Keanu's a bit rough as a film. It feels like it needed a little bit more massaging in order to be a more complete film, but it is still, I think, a respectable first shot at big screen success, and it does make you hope that Key and Peele will choose to root their next effort into a little bit more of that scathing satire that I think that they are capable of doing, instead of just merely escalating the levels of absurdity as the films play out. I'm going to give this film a recommendation because I do think it's funny enough. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 4, and 3 stars on my scale means that I do think it's worthwhile for those people who are specifically looking for a film like this. If you're a fan of Key and Peele, certainly you'll probably go out and see this, but also fans of gangster, thug, action movies will probably see this as a funny takeoff on that. So 3 stars out of 4 for Keanu. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the review. If you did, I do encourage you to click the subscribe button, and you'll continue to get all of my reviews downloaded into your podcast player throughout the year. Also, if you happen to be on iTunes or any place else where you can leave a review, if you've been listening for a while and you want to know how to support the show, the best way you can do that is to leave a review. Let other people know that this is a show worth checking out. We can build the audience, and I'll get to continue to do this show for many years to come, hopefully. If you want to write to me, you can do so by going to my website. You can find my contact information there, as well as links to my Twitter feed and Facebook page, so you'll always know when I post a new review. Quipster.net is where to go. QWIPSTER.net. Thanks everyone for listening, and I hope that you enjoy your time anytime you get to go to the movies.